Hello to friends of the Hillary Institute. This is Michael Brune. I'm the Executive Director of the Sierra Club, one of the oldest and largest grassroots environmental organizations on the planet, and I'm also a Hillary Laureate from 2014. So, good day to you all. I want to talk a little bit about where we are as we lead up to the climate negotiations in Paris this November and December. Because clearly we have a moment of great opportunity and a need for strong leadership. In California, which is where the Sierra Club is based, it has become more clear than ever the consequences of our dependence on dirty fuels and the consequences of inaction on climate change around the world. In California, we're experiencing the largest and most intense drought in recorded history. We're seeing farms dry up, we're seeing extreme wildfires, we're seeing people's lives be lost in the fighting of those wildfires, and what we're seeing is an economy that is being imperiled because of the effects of climate change. And as I think most people who are watching this video know, this is not unique to California, this is not unique to the United States, this is happening some type of climate disruption, whether it's wildfires or droughts or extreme weather events, are being felt in many countries around the world. And if you don't have a relationship yet with an extreme weather event, give it a couple years, because you probably will, or someone that you care about probably will as well. What we know is because of our dependence on fossil fuels, we are facing adverse health consequences, we're facing adverse economic consequences, and we're also seeing the destruction or degradation of the places that we care most about. We know that our dependence on dirty fuels is imperiling our air quality and our water quality. In the United States, we have seen places like the Arctic off the coast of Alaska be put at risk because of our dependence on fossil fuels. We're seeing places like the Atlantic coastline or state and national forests all across the country being put at risk because of oil drilling or gas drilling, fracking, coal mining. What we also know is that our dependence on dirty energy, coal, oil, and gas, and nuclear power is sacrificing the health of Americans and people all around the world. We know that coal itself contributes to 4 out of the 5 leading causes of death in the United States. And we know that there are hundreds of thousands of people in the United States and all around the world, in China, in India, in New Zealand, in Australia, South Africa, whose air quality is being damaged, and hundreds of thousands of people whose lives are being lost prematurely because of air pollution quality, primarily because of dirty fuels. And so it is clear, whether we're looking at this solely from an economic perspective, or whether we're looking at this from a human health perspective, or whether we're looking at this from a need to keep dirty fuels in the ground, that we have to find a way to transition to clean energy. The survival of our planet depends on it, and the health of millions of people around the world depend on it as well. The good news is that we have reached an historical tipping point. We have reached the time where clean energy is becoming cheaper than dirty fuels. Solar and wind, energy storage, energy efficiency, as a package, clean energy is now becoming not only more accessible, but more affordable than the dirty fuels that we're working to replace. This is true particularly in the United States, in places like California, but also places like Iowa and Kansas and Nebraska and Oklahoma and South Dakota and North Dakota and down in Texas and New Mexico and Arizona, places in the East where clean energy, solar and wind in particular, is becoming cheaper than dirty fuels. So think about what that means. That means that a community in Iowa that once was highly dependent on coal as a primary source of producing electricity now can enjoy the benefits of a coal plant retiring, being replaced in Iowa largely by wind and some energy efficiency, and not only does their air get cleaner, not only will their water become more clean, not only is our climate have a shot at being stabilized, not only are more jobs being created in clean energy development, such as wind energy manufacturing, but we're also seeing the rates for those ratepayers go down because clean energy is becoming cheaper than dirty fuels. And that fact, that transition, has the power to change almost everything. To change almost everything. Because we are in the process of building a society that is powered by 100% clean energy. Building a society all of whose energy will come from sources that are safe and secure and sustainable. And that transition is irreversible. Once we decide to move towards clean energy, that's a one-way trip. We will never go back. When we're replacing a dirty coal-fired power plant with solar and wind, that transition is one way. We will not go back. Why would we blow off the tops of our mountains to mine a small amount of coal when we can rely on free energy from the sun and wind instead? Why would we even think about fracking in our watersheds or in our parks and wilderness areas or some of the most beautiful forests in the country and around the world when we can rely on energy from the sun and wind instead? Why would we look at any dirty fuel when we know that clean energy puts more people to work, it improves our local economies, it promotes economic resiliency, and it makes our air cleaner and our water cleaner? So that's the point that we're in right now, where the climate urgency has never been more acute. The consequences of our inability to act have never been more clear, and the opportunity has never been more clear, because we can save money while we put more people to work, while we clean up our air, clean up our water, and help stabilize our atmosphere. So the challenge, here's a specific challenge, that in the negotiations in Paris, at the climate summit, where there will be almost 200 countries represented, we need to see an agreement that is ambitious, that gets us to a 2 degrees Celsius scenario where warming does not exceed more than 2 degrees Celsius or 3.6 degrees Fahrenheit. We need an agreement that is transparent because every country's commitment needs to be very clear. We need an agreement that is enforceable because if the United States makes a commitment to reduce its carbon by 2025 and by 2030, that commitment needs to translate into action. If China says its emissions will peak by 2030, that can be great, but those emissions need to go down dramatically and that agreement needs to be enforced. So we need an agreement that is ambitious, that is transparent, that is enforceable, and that will improve over time. Because what we know is the agreement that we'll get in Paris is likely to be good, but it won't be sufficient. It's likely to be historic, but it won't fully get the job done. And so that's where we need all of you. We need everybody to hold their leaders accountable, whether it's your president, your prime minister, your Congress, your parliament, whether it's your state or provincial governor or premier, whether it's the CEO of the company that you work in, or the chancellor or dean of your school. We need everybody to get engaged, to be engaged as a citizen, as a voter, as a consumer, and as an investor. We need to move away from dirty fuels, embrace 100% clean energy, and hold everybody, even ourselves, accountable as we reach that goal. So thank you.